The American Civil War was a conflict defined by many things: brother against brother, ideology against ideology, and ultimately, technology against technology. On the battlefields of this epic conflict, amidst the smoke, the cries, and the clash of arms, one sound rose above all others: the roar of artillery. While the rifled cannon was beginning to make its presence felt, it was the smoothbore artillery piece that stood as the backbone of both the Union and Confederate armies. These weapons, seemingly simple in their design, possessed a fearsome power, capable of shaping the course of battles and deciding the fate of nations. The roar of smoothbore artillery was a constant presence on Civil War battlefields. These guns, firing a variety of projectiles, could decimate infantry formations, level fortifications, and sow terror in the hearts of even the bravest soldiers. The sound of a cannon firing, the earth-shuddering boom followed by the shriek of the projectile, was a harbinger of death and destruction, a sound that left an indelible mark on the minds of all who experienced it. The strategic importance of artillery was understood by both sides. Batteries of cannons were deployed strategically, often placed on high ground to command a wide field of fire. Their primary objective was to support infantry assaults by softening up enemy lines, disrupting their formations, and demoralizing their ranks. While all smoothbore artillery pieces shared the basic principle of firing a projectile from a smooth-walled barrel, their roles and designs varied significantly. They were categorized into two primary types: guns and howitzers, each serving distinct purposes on the battlefield. This distinction was based primarily on their intended role on the battlefield and the trajectory of their projectiles, which influenced their tactical deployment. Guns, with their longer barrels and higher muzzle velocities, were designed to fire projectiles in a relatively flat trajectory. This design allowed them to engage targets at longer ranges with direct fire. This made them ideal for delivering direct fire against enemy troops, fortifications, and artillery batteries. Their ability to strike from a distance was a significant advantage in open battlefield scenarios. However, their accuracy at long range was limited, and their effectiveness relied heavily on concentrated fire to compensate for this. Coordinated volleys could create devastating effects, overwhelming enemy positions. Howitzers, on the other hand, were characterized by their shorter barrels and lower muzzle velocities. These features allowed them to fire projectiles in a high, arcing trajectory. This high arc made howitzers particularly well suited for engaging targets behind cover, such as entrenched infantry or fortifications. Their ability to lob shells over obstacles provided a tactical advantage in sieges and defensive battles. Their projectiles, often explosive shells, rained down upon the enemy, inflicting casualties and creating havoc. The psychological impact of these bombardments was also significant, demoralizing enemy troops and disrupting their formations. The distinction between guns and howitzers was not just technical, but also strategic. Commanders had to carefully choose which type of artillery to deploy based on the specific needs of the battle. Logistics and terrain also played crucial roles in these decisions. Guns required clear lines of sight and open fields to maximize their range, while howitzers could be effective in more varied and rugged terrains. The effective use of both types of artillery in combination could turn the tide of battle, providing a balanced approach to both offensive and defensive operations. Understanding the strengths and limitations of each type was essential for any successful military campaign. In summary, the distinction between guns and howitzers in Civil War artillery was a critical factor in battlefield strategy. Each type had its unique advantages and was deployed to maximize its strengths, shaping the outcomes of many engagements during the war. Section 4. The materials of war: bronze, iron, and steel. The production of artillery pieces, these instruments of war, was a complex and demanding process. Each step required precision and expertise, from the initial design to the final casting and assembly. The foundries of the time were bustling centers of activity, where skilled workers toiled day and night to meet the demands of the war effort. The materials used in their construction played a crucial role in their durability, range, and effectiveness. The choice of material could mean the difference between victory and defeat on the battlefield. Each material brought its own set of advantages and challenges, influencing the design and performance of the artillery. During the Civil War, three primary materials were used: bronze, iron, and steel. These materials were selected based on their availability, cost, and the specific requirements of the artillery pieces being produced. Bronze, an alloy of copper and tin, had been the traditional material for cannon making for centuries. Its use dates back to ancient civilizations, where it was prized for its workability and durability. It was favored for its relatively low melting point, making it easier to cast, and its resistance to corrosion. This made bronze cannons particularly suitable for naval warfare, where exposure to salt water could quickly degrade other materials. Bronze cannons were known for their longevity and reliability, some seeing service for decades or even centuries. Their ability to withstand the test of time made them a valuable asset in any military arsenal. However, bronze was also a relatively expensive material, and its production could be limited by the availability of copper and tin. These metals had to be mined and transported, adding to the overall cost and complexity of producing bronze artillery. Iron, while less expensive and more readily available than bronze, presented its own challenges. The process of casting iron was more labor-intensive, and the resulting cannons were heavier and more difficult to maneuver. This brittleness could lead to catastrophic failures on the battlefield. Soldiers operating during advancements in iron production during the Industrial Revolution, as the hot blast furnaces led to the production of iron ore and iron that was strong. These technological innovations allowed for the mass production of iron cannons, making them more accessible to armies on both sides of the conflict. Iron cannons, while heavier than their bronze counterparts, offered a more economical alternative, especially for mass production. Their widespread use during the Civil War was a testament to the balance they struck between cost and performance. Steel, an alloy of iron and carbon, offered the greatest strength and durability of the three materials. The introduction of steel revolutionized artillery design, allowing for the creation of more powerful and longer-lasting cannons. Steel cannons could withstand higher internal pressures, allowing for the firing of heavier projectiles at greater ranges. This increased firepower gave armies a significant advantage, enabling them to strike targets from greater distances with greater accuracy. However, steel production was a more complex and expensive process than either bronze or iron, and its use in artillery production was limited during the Civil War. The technology and infrastructure required to produce steel on a large scale were still in their infancy, making it a less viable option for widespread use. Despite these challenges, the innovations in materials and manufacturing techniques during the Civil War laid the groundwork for future advancements in artillery. The lessons learned from the use of bronze, iron, and steel would inform the development of even more powerful and efficient weapons in the years to come. Today, the legacy of these materials can still be seen in modern artillery design. The principles of strength, durability, and efficiency continue to guide the development of new weapons, ensuring that the lessons of the past are not forgotten. The cannons of the Civil War, whether made of bronze, iron, or steel, stand as a testament to the ingenuity and determination of those who designed and built them. They are a reminder of the technological advancements that shape the course of history and the enduring impact of the materials of war. Section 5. Classifying the arsenal bore, weight, and range. In this section, we delve into the intricate details of how artillery pieces were categorized during the Civil War, focusing on three main aspects: bore diameter, weight, and range. The arsenals of both the Union and Confederate armies were filled with a bewildering array of smoothbore artillery pieces, each classified according to a system based on bore diameter, projectile weight, and effective range. This system was crucial for the effective deployment and utilization of artillery on the battlefield. This classification system allowed for a degree of standardization, enabling artillerymen to quickly identify the capabilities and limitations of a particular piece. It was essential for the artillery crews to understand these classifications to maximize their effectiveness in combat situations. The most common unit of measurement for bore diameter was the pounder, which referred to the weight of solid shot that the gun was designed to fire. This terminology was straightforward yet vital for the artillerymen to comprehend. A 6-pounder, for example, fired a 6-pound solid iron ball, which was a standard projectile used in many battles. The 6-pounder was known for its balance between mobility and firepower, while a 12-pounder fired a 12-pound ball. The 12-pounder was more powerful and had a longer range, making it a formidable weapon on the battlefield. The weight of the projectile determined the gun's effective range and penetrating power. Heavier projectiles could travel further and cause more damage upon impact, which was a critical factor in artillery strategy. In addition to bore diameter, artillery pieces were also classified by their weight, usually expressed in hundreds of pounds. This weight classification was important for understanding the logistical requirements of moving and operating the artillery. A 6-pounder gun, for example, might weigh 800 pounds, making it relatively easy to maneuver compared to heavier artillery pieces. Designated as an 8cwt gun, indicating its weight in hundredweight units. This classification helped artillery crews quickly assess the mobility and deployment options for each piece. While a 12-pounder howitzer might weigh 1,200 pounds, making it significantly heavier and less mobile but more powerful. Designated as a 12cwt howitzer, the weight classification was crucial for planning the transportation and deployment of artillery pieces in various terrains and battle conditions. The weight of the gun determined its mobility on the battlefield, with lighter pieces being more versatile and easier to reposition as needed during the heat of battle, with lighter pieces being easier to maneuver and deploy, allowing for rapid response to changing battlefield conditions and tactical requirements, while heavier pieces offered greater stability and range. These heavier artillery pieces were often used in more static positions where their firepower could be maximized without the need for frequent repositioning. The balance between mobility and firepower was a constant consideration for artillery commanders, who had to decide the best mix of light and heavy artillery to support their strategic objectives. Understanding the classifications of bore, weight, and range was essential for effective artillery strategy, ensuring that each piece was used to its fullest potential in the complex and dynamic environment of Civil War battles.